Hello, and welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast with your host, peak performance coach, Brian Bosley. Are you stuck on the hamster wheel of life, spinning and spinning, but not really moving forward? Are you ready to jump off and soar? Are you finally ready to sculpt your life? If so, you've landed in the right place. This podcast is created and broadcast just for you. All of you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about Brian and the Bamboo Lab, feel free to reach out to explore your true peak level at www.bamboolab3.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. I am your appreciative host, Brian Bosley, and we have an incredible show today. I can't wait to introduce this really pretty cool guy we got on. But before we do, I want to start off by reading an email we received last week by a podcast subscriber, Billy. Billy wrote, "Hi, Brian. I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate listening to the podcast on my morning drive to work. I always find something to reflect on, and many times I feel inspired to push myself just a little harder that day. I love that your content is based on the belief that everyone has a story that we can all learn from. Best of luck with your book and the rest of the podcast." So I want to thank you, Billy, for tuning in each week. And I want to thank all the listeners out there and subscribers, as well as especially those people who do reach out. We get so many letters, emails, texts, cards sometimes in the mail every day. And I do read each and every one of them, and they're all precious to me. All right, today, remember, folks, as you listen to this amazing guest we have on today, please smash that like button, give us a rating and a review, and please share us with 3 people. I mean, the content we're sharing with the guests that we're bringing on, including today, send it to people who really could hear an inspiring message from a really amazing person, because that's all we bring on the podcast is amazing people. All right, today, this one here. So we have a guy today, Justin Samples. Now, Justin and I have known each other for, I don't know, 17 years or so. And
I think that's right.
It's been a long time, Justin. And it's funny how time flies. So everyone, Justin is the founder and CEO of Fulcrum Wealth Management Group, which this is really impressive, man. They have been recognized by Forbes, Barron's, and the Financial Times as one of the top financial services practices in America for the past 6 years running. That's incredible. It really is. He and his wife, Kara, have 2 amazing sons, aged 4 and 6, and those boys, I see them on Facebook, they keep them busy, man. And once you hear Justin today, you're going to realize a lot of that, his wife, too, Kara, has the same energy level as Justin. So these boys are just going to be superstar, fantastic winners in life. When they're not busy in their practice and working on the team and the practice and their clients, they're chasing their kids around. But they also enjoy training for and competing in extreme endurance events, man. He covers it all, man. Financial success in his practice, working with his team and clients, being a part and raising an amazing family, and then also this incredible endurance stuff that they do. So anyway, without further ado, Justin, my longtime friend, welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me, Brian. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, this is great. All right. So as I said earlier, we've known each other for so long, 17, 18 years. I remember the first.
It doesn't feel like it that long, right?
You know what's funny, Justin? Obviously you've known Dave Dick for a long time. He's been on the podcast a couple. I think I met you and Dave on the same day.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that when Byron had you out way back in the consulting days. Yeah,
because I remember it was in Vancouver, and Dave and his wife, Alicia, and his 3 daughters picked me up from the airport, met them. We went to lunch, came to the office, and then, I remember exactly. I remember where I first met you when you were in Byron's office when I walked in, and you were in there when I walked in. And he introduced me to you. Yeah. We had a few words, and then I think you slid out and you went to do some work or do some things. And I think you were just getting into training management at the time.
Yeah, that was like the very beginning. The beginning of an arduous path. Like the funnest thing I don't want to do twice.
The funnest thing. I had hair back then, if you remember. Beautiful hair too. All right, so obviously I've gotten to know you, Justin, over the years, and but I'd like you to share with the Bamboo Pack a little bit about yourself, your childhood, your family, where you're from, who or what inspired you growing up. Just kind of give us whatever you'd like to share.
Yeah, well, I mean, I like to start at the beginning. I grew up in rural Southern Oregon, kind of a little town called Central Point, Oregon. really the Medford Ashland area, for anybody that's kind of familiar with Oregon in general. It used to be an area dominated by logging, and then that kind of went away in the late 80s, early 90s with some environmental stuff, and then so which made it kind of an interesting area to grow up in during that period of time, but also an area that's started to kind of turn around and find its sea legs over the last decade or so. But I grew up the son of a single mother of two. So I spent my school year living down there, and then my summers in Eastern Oregon, living with my grandparents on my dad's side of the family, really kind of I jokingly say as an indentured servant on my grandparents' ranch, for lack of a better word. They're working their property out there, hauling sprinkler pipe, bucking hay, chasing cattle, and fishing in the afternoons. And so, I was incredibly fortunate to kind of get to see, different kind of, paths through life, and kind of what those, kind of how those paths lead, and then, and also learn the value of hard work, right? There's nothing quite like hauling sprinkler pipe all day long in the heat, for 25 cents a pipe, especially when you do the inflation calculation. But I was incredibly fortunate to have some, amazing high school and middle school, coaches, wrestling coaches, football coaches, teachers, and peers and mentors, that through that time kind of helped, knock some sense into me and get me on the right track. And so from there, I was fortunate enough to go to Linfield, what's now Linfield University. It used to be Linfield College. Played a little bit of football. I guess a little bit of a side note. Linfield University football holds the record for consecutive winning seasons, which currently stands at 66 and counting. But I don't think we'll be playing Michigan anytime in the Big House anytime soon. So, but I studied finance and economics there, and then during my time there, I had a tremendous leadership opportunity as a part of a fraternal organization that really kind of changed the way I saw myself and my ability to kind of influence others in a positive direction. And then I started with Ameriprise, or back then it was American Express, right out of college. The rest is kind of history. Right?
What year was that, Justin? Then it was
that was 05 that I started.
Okay, so it was 13 or 18 years ago. Wow.
Yeah,
so,
time flies.
It does. It's interesting. When I looked at your website for your team is so big that it's amazing how many people from your team I know, or I've worked with, or there's like 5 or 6 people on your team, and I see Lisa McBride's on your team now too.
Yep. Yeah, Lisa's back. She's an all-star for us. Lisa, TJ. I'm trying to think.
Lindsay McEntee.
Lindsay. Lindsay's
Jenna
awesome.
Busick.
She's
Jenna.
Talk about all-star. Jenna. Yep.
Yeah, I remember Jenna.
Yeah.
And
that's by design, Brian.
Yeah, you've got a solid team of people here. Lisa was on the podcast.
Awesome!
6-7 months ago. Yeah, she did a really good episode on health and health habits and things like that. It was really well received. Really well received.
That's great.
Still getting a ton of downloads each week, and it was in the fall anyway. I think anyway.
Okay.
But this is episode number 93, so they're starting to blend in a little bit at this point. But anyway, so when you were growing up, I didn't realize you grew up with a single mother. I did as well. As my father died when I was 4. But your grandparents, you worked for them on the ranch, hauling pipe. Who or what inspired you? Because you got a really unique personality. There's no doubt. I mean, you do, man.
Yeah,
you're intense.
Some people. Yeah, some people use a different word, but I'll take unique.
We'll take unique, quirky. Well, it's so interesting because when you met Kara, I was working with you guys, not when you met, but guys, you were fairly newlywed when I was working with the team, and I thought, most times when you have a really intense person, they tend to connect with somebody who's a lot more laid back. And then I talk with Kara, I'm like, she's not laid back at all. That woman is intense, if not more than Justin. I mean, so I just know the boys are going to have an incredible opportunity to make some big impact on the world just based on the two of you and who you are. But when you were growing up, to make that person you are today, Justin, what were your inspirations for growing up and being the person you are today?
Man, it's a hard thing to pinpoint, right? Because I could rattle off like 10 people just right off the top of my head that have had like tremendous impact. Like one person like that's just like that comes to mind. He's actually, this is crazy, but like when I was growing up, I really I was not in a good spot. Let's put it that way. I was like an adolescent middle schooler. And I had a cousin who happened to be the superintendent of the school district that I was in. His name was Mike McLaren. And Mike was a tremendous person that just, he showed me that, for example, like you can have an impact on people's life by simply demonstrating that you care. But when I think about it, and that's like immediately where my mind goes, because I could start rattling off 10, 15, 20 people that have like changed my life for the better. But when I think about that question, I have a hard time because I have to kind of break it down into like aspirational versus like an aspiration, like might be like a person that I've never met, but showed me like what greatness really is in some way. And then like the other categories of direct, right? Like direct leadership, people that I interacted with directly, and they impacted me through interactions, or just their actions alone. And at some point it's kind of like, well, like who do you leave off the list?
I know it's hard.
Because you know what I mean? It's, but I have been incredibly blessed with so many different people. And so like, when I think of like, if I think of like that aspirational category, the one I always come back to is Michael Jordan, which might sound a little cliche. But I still remember to this day, like in the third grade, checking out this kind of children's Michael Jordan book, and reading that thing, and then having to check it back in, and then checking it out the next week, and then reading it again, and doing that whole thing, and learning that story of him always getting dominated by his big brother, getting cut from his high school basketball team, working with fierce determination to overcome any challenge, that competitive edge, all those things, and then I started just obsessing with. Honestly, I think I've probably read every Michael Jordan book ever written, and it's kind of funny because as I look at how that impacted me, I was interacting with I ran into a friend from high school several months back, and we were kind of chopping it up and catching up, and he said. Because like one of the things I remember about you is every day after school, rain or shine, that you'd be outside playing basketball at May Richardson, all by yourself, sometimes with other people, but like you were always like at it. And it's funny to me because I play like no basketball now. I do a lot of other stuff, but like it's funny that that's the way it kind of manifested. Yeah.
What did you think of the documentary about Michael Jackson that came out a couple of years ago? What was it
Jordan?
Jordan, yeah.
Yeah. I would not obsess about Michael Jackson, just to be
clear.
No.
Really?
Yeah. I loved it.
That was great.
I think, to kind of show you how close Kara and I are, as like how aligned we are as people, we both multiple times like were tearing up during that documentary. It was, just like kind of that, to see like what greatness really is and kind of that edge. And then also just taking you back to your childhood, right? Was really cool.
Well, yeah, I liked it because I learned a part of something about Michael Jordan that I didn't know before, and how much of an ass he was at practice, like to push those people. I mean, because you always, he had a really good PR firm working with him and for him, and so he had a really good image out there, and he still does. But you don't get to that level without pushing other people, and sometimes they have to see a side of you they never want to see again, and that's what he did. He mastered that so well.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. I mean, he really did, and The thing that stands out is the reverence that everybody has for him when they talk about him. Mm-hmm. It's really like you don't see any serious individual, let's put it that way, say like anything bad or borderline about Jordan, right?
No.
It's, any serious individual talks about him with reverence, and that kind of just tells you how great he was.
Well, I just saw. I was just watching when he did a speech at a commemorative memorial for Kobe and his daughter, and they gave the welcome. It was, I don't know where it was, but there were a lot of people there. When he got up to go up on stage, man, that place erupted.
Yeah.
Have you ever read anything by Tim Grover, Limitless, or have you? Okay.
Yeah, that Limitless. I just read that over Thanksgiving break last year. It was. I think I sent it to every single person that I text with regularly.
Didn't you want to just run through a brick wall when you read that book?
Oh, totally.
That and his other book, Winning, man. I read those, man. I get goosebumps talking about him because, obviously he coached Kobe and coached Jordan, I believe. Yeah, that was his first go around. Was he worked with Jordan, and I thought that those are two of the best. So, folks out there, Tim Grover, book Relentless or his book Winning, highly recommended by both Justin and I. So I'd get out there and pick them up, man.
For sure. Justin,
we've gone through a lot of odd changes over the past. Go ahead.
One thing I just, the other person that, and this is more kind of real in terms of aspirational, just because I feel like I wouldn't feel good about myself leaving her off, is my mom.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't perfect, but, as a single mother of two, she did the best that she could. Of course, we all make a lot of mistakes as parents, and I probably make more than most, but she really kind of showed me what love and sacrifice truly are. When I was really young, that meant working 2 full-time jobs and me babysitting my little brother at the age of 7, just so we could eat. But as we got older, it didn't. We came into a little bit more stable situation through her hard work. It didn't matter how little money that we had. She'd find a way to support my ability to pursue things that I was truly passionate about. And so I still use a lot of those experiences today just to keep me grounded. Whether it was her kind of working all hours of the night, just to make ends meet, especially when I think work is hard, if I think, work is really tough right now, or I always kind of reflect back on those things, or even the kids, you probably hear this a little too much, but it's if there's leftovers for dinner, it's for the 3rd meal in a row or something like that, and if the kids are complaining about it, or if I'm complaining about it, I have to kind of remind myself, well, I didn't have ramen for the 15th meal in a row, right? Or I didn't have the mom's bag of rice, can of peas, can of tuna, casserole, for the 8th meal in a row or something like that. And so it's things like that I think really kind of, keep you grounded. I mean, the other day, the second I got done complaining about it, I immediately was I had to kind of jolt myself because we ran out of hot water in the house, because there might be a member of the household that tends to take very hot, very long showers. That will go unnamed, but and I was complaining about it, and I thought for a second, I didn't have to boil water to take my weekly bath, right? Because we couldn't afford hot water. So it's one of those things where you just kind of have to. It's a good kind of regrounding on what really is important in life and what is a hardship.
Well, I think I just want to say thank you to your mom and to your cousin Mike for molding you to the person you are today, because, just following your journey over the course of the past 18 years, watching your team and Fulcrum grow and the impact they have on clients. I mean, it's amazing the sacrifices people made in previous generations, and what they did and how they groomed and raised one individual can change the world, generations down the road. It's so amazing, the impact. It's like the butterfly effect, the way your mom, struggled and worked 2 jobs and did all those things. And you guys had to boil water and eat ramen noodles and, the chicken tuna casserole or tuna noodle casserole stuff with peas in it. That stuff right there, it seems like it's always those times when you're in it, you're like, this sucks. But then later on, you look at it and say, had that not happened, Justin Samples would not be here today. You never would have met Kara. You wouldn't have your boys. Fulcrum would not be in existence. It just, that right there groomed you for the man you are today. And it's always easy to look back because hindsight is 20/20. But so many of the people I have on the podcast tell us about their childhood, and it's like, wow. That's it's inspiring because so many Bamboo Pack audience members out there right now, they're going through some struggles, or they went through struggles as a child. And you can now see that we don't have to use those struggles as an excuse for not reaching our potential. We need to use those as a catapult, or a better word, as a fulcrum to get us to that next level in life. So I think that's fantastic, man. Yeah, you got to mention mom out there. You got to do that.
Yep.
So, the last couple of years, Justin, we've gone through a lot of changes in the world, and so many things are going viral, or not viral, but virtual, and just the world has changed, obviously. What have you seen as your greatest learning in the past 12 to 24 months?
Oh, man. That's a hard question, I think, because I feel like I'm constantly learning, like something new. Mm-hmm. And there's so many valuable lessons over time. Like, it's like, how do you pick one? Like, I could pick like something I just learned this morning. But I won't talk about that one, but for the podcast. But but if I had to pick one, it's one that for some reason I just, like keep learning repeatedly over and over and over again. And when I come back to it, it works out. It's if I get distracted or if I forget about it. But when I come back to it and kind of reground on it, it's amazing how things improve regardless of the area of my life. And this kind of goes back to like another person that impacted me, high school wrestling coach, Greg Haga is still down there, grinding as the Crater High School wrestling coach down there. I text with him probably weekly. And, when I was wrestling and growing up, I was, I matured late, let's put it that way. And my wife might say I'm still maturing. But, like growing, it's like when I first started wrestling and through like the first several years, it was something like 32 of my first 34 matches. And the bulk of those losses were by getting pinned. And in fact, the 2 wins I had were against the same kid over the course of 2 years. I was, I was taking my lumps, let's just kind of put it that way. But one of the things that my coaches saw in me is I wasn't willing to quit. And that coach, he had seen me at church, the previous weekend or something, and it kind of pulled me aside at school, and he asked me to look up a Bible verse when I got home, and that Bible verse is Proverbs 14:23, and what that says is, all hard work will be repaid, while mere talk brings only poverty. And for some reason, that really kind of stuck with me, and that mentality of any problem can be outworked with the right plan in place, and over time, just continuously diligently working on it. You just have to do the work, right? That's all it really comes down to. And I can't tell you how often it hits me out of nowhere. Like I'll be getting bogged down in the office, and I just all of a sudden I'm like, well, Justin, are you doing the work? If you're having trouble in a relationship, well, are you doing the work? If the yard looks like crap, well, are you doing the work, right? Are you taking the time to pull the weeds and do the hard stuff? Gaining weight, same thing, right? Are you doing the work? Are you paying attention to what you're putting in your mouth? Are you paying attention to how often you're moving your body? And I think that is like the one thing that, just in the last 12 months, again, I think, like most people, I put on a little bit of a the COVID-20, and I had to kind of get right and start working on it. And, and I can think of countless times in the business where that's kind of struck me as well. And I'd say particularly over the last 12 months, that's really kind of come back to the forefront.
Well, now I know you gave a commencement speech recently, didn't you?
Yeah, kind of a keynote. Yeah,
keynote. Okay, and you and I briefly talked about this last week, and you had some. You want to share some of that stuff right now, because I think it toes in really well to what we're talking about here. Because something that you said to me last week did hit me, and that is, it's kind of eliminating these life hacks and trying to cut corners. And I'm just paraphrasing for effect of what you said, but can you encapsulate that and kind of share that with the Bamboo Pack?
Yeah. It's, like I jokingly kind of called that, that talk, like hack proof your life. Right. It's like, as everybody's trying to, find the silver bullet, right? Everybody's trying to like find the secret product or like the secret supplements or, trying to, short circuit something, right? Like you're trying to like hack a business success, right? It's like, oh, I don't have to do the, in my line of work, it would have been, like, I don't have to generate, the hundreds of leads or thousands of leads necessary to become successful because I've outsmarted this whole thing. And instead it's just focusing on, do the work, right? Do the work with integrity, do it with diligence. And, the quote that I often reflect on is outlast the bastards, right? Mm-hmm. There's going to be flashes in the pan. There's going to be Johnny come latelys that, have a moment of success, but true, lasting, meaningful success comes with hard work over time, right? It comes with, getting comfortable, being uncomfortable, right? And just, it doesn't mean you have to go the full David Goggins, right? We don't have to, you don't have to run 100 miles out in the wilderness or, you don't have to, try to drown yourself by tying your hands behind your back. But it does mean like just taking that next best step, right? And continuously, checking in with yourself and kind of plowing ahead, even when it gets tough, right? And if you do that long enough with integrity, with diligence, it all works out.
Okay, I just want to encapsulate what he just said for the Bamboo Pack out there. Just hear what he said, because I think this is one of the more profound things we've heard on the podcast, because we do hear that a lot. I read a lot of books, as Justin does. We read a lot. And a lot of books are, in fact, designed to try to give us this secret ingredient that's out that nobody has out there, this secret spice that if you sprinkle it on your day, it's going to make everything perfect and you're going to be successful without doing the work. And one of the things I've always believed, and I fully believe, probably more than anything in this world, is that motivation does not create action. Action creates motivation. And, when you're sitting on your couch watching Netflix and you want to go for a run, you don't motivate yourself to go for the run. You get up and go for the run. And then while you're running, the motivation kicks in. And that's exactly what he's talking about. Hack proof your life. Don't look for the silver bullets. Don't look for the shortcuts and short circuits, because they're not there. You might find one in your lifetime. I don't know. Maybe you'll find a couple, but you're going to be searching so many days and so many days looking for that you're going to miss all these opportunities that are right in front of you. Do the work. But here's the key that he said: with diligence and integrity. It's not just doing the work. You got to do the work with diligence and integrity. And that integrity is so important. I love the term outlast the bastards. I think that's one of the best titles I've ever heard, man. I think that's perfect. I love it. And being comfortable, being uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And there is no glory in your comfort zone, man. There's people you don't live in your comfort zone. You go there to die. And every day, stretch that comfort zone, man. The only way you do that is to become uncomfortable. We do an exercise.
Have you read?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Have you read that book, Comfort Crisis?
No, I have not.
It's like that should be like next on the list. It's probably one of my favorite books I've read in the last like 3 years. And it goes right up your alley because, like one of the things the writer does is he goes on this crazy like Alaskan caribou hunt, right, out in the wilderness. And so it's a really good book, but it deals with exactly this topic of, society is kind of all of the creature comforts that we've developed over the last really like 50, 60 years, in terms of what technology's afforded us, in a lot of ways has done us a tremendous disservice. And it's a really, really good book. And it hits on all those things that you just said.
Well, it's funny. I just pulled it up on Amazon here, and if this is the one, and it says I have it in my Audible library. Oh, I do.
Oh, there you go.
It's Michael Easter?
Yep.
Okay. I have it. I must have bought it at one time. Just embrace discomfort to reclaim your wild. Perfect. That's my next listen to. I'll order it too, but I listen to books on tape or Audible when I'm like working out. Like today, I listened to one while I was rowing or just, cleaning the house or walking around or when I'm driving. Otherwise, I like to read, but I'm going to order this for a hardcover too, but I'll start listening to it this afternoon. It's funny that I have it. I must have thought, hey, this is a good book, but I never clearly started listening to it before because it hasn't begun to be played. I just think that's important that, this being uncomfortable thing, because, there's been a time, and I think or not COVID, but, being quarantined, being, lockdowns, it just changed our lives, some for the better and some for the worse. And I told my clients and I told my family and myself, we're not going to get through this. It was 3 years ago, March. I said, we will not come out of this the same person. We'll either be stronger or we'll be weaker. And it'll be how much we test our comfort zones. And it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be a change of everything. And what I did see is thankfully the vast majority of the people I'm surrounded by, family and friends and clients, we came out much stronger. But I do know some people who came out much, much weaker with mental health issues. And it's primarily because during that time, they didn't really try to overcome. They didn't try to become a better person. They stayed in this comfort, which now turns into extreme discomfort for them. And I just think the one thing you said that I love is take the next best step. That's it. It's just take one step. I love. I was reading a book one time, Justin. I'm not sure who. Oh, it was Atomic Habits, I think, by James Clear. And he talked about if you want to be a person who goes to the gym, put your clothes on and just walk into the gym and then walk back out. Then tomorrow, stay for 2 minutes. Then the next day, stay for 5. You will become that person who goes to the gym. And, you're going to work out when you start staying for a few minutes. You're going to do something. And then just become that person. When I started rowing for 11 minutes, my first time. And now I'm up to, I can row for as long as I want to now. Planks. I started doing planks for 3 minutes every day, or for 30 seconds, 3 years ago. Now I'm doing 10, 11-minute planks. And I try to do 10 or 5 seconds more every day. Just because you get used to being the person who rows or goes to the gym or does planks or reads or tells their spouse you love them or whatever it is, calls 3 extra prospects a day. Once you do a little bit of it, you take that next best step. You become that person eventually. So I love that.
I stole that from one of my kids' Disney movies. I think it was Frozen 2. Do the next best thing. It was, you never know where you get like a key learning, right? But to that point, I tell everybody, the hardest part of working out is going to the gym. That's the hardest part. If you could just do that part, everything else is fine. So.
It's just sometimes, going and I had Dr. Fred Luskin on here 3 months ago, Justin. He is a Stanford University professor and an expert on forgiveness. And he wrote a book called Forgive for Good, which is a fantastic book, man. An amazing book on forgiveness. And he said, get away from saying I have to go to the gym he goes, just start saying I choose to or I get to. I choose to go. That little thing, And so I did this thing all winter long I call it snow rucking. Rucking is when you hike with a weighted vest on. Yep. And so I was doing snow rucking all winter long because the sidewalks here get really slippery and I don't really want to fall. At 56 years old, the falls aren't the same as they were when I was 30. And so I did a lot of rucking and I'd be sitting there going, oh, God, I have to ruck this afternoon. I got to hit that stinking trail. And then I started saying, I get to. And then he said, actually, Brian, say I choose to. And see how that works. And I'd say, hey, I choose to go this afternoon. And it just changed my mindset. Little clicks like that make such a big difference. So those are little life hacks that actually do work. But it's funny that you say that. They're getting you to do the thing that you should do.
It's funny that you say that because somebody somewhere basically kind of like drilled into my head, get to or choose to. And it was I think I was in high school. And the other day I said, I was taking Jackson to his jujitsu class, and I said, "Oh, I have to do this." And Jackson in the back seat of the car goes, "Dad," he said, "you have to, not get to." It was like that little subtle reminder, and it's cool to see that your kids, either reflect, your poor behaviors or potentially even your positive ones. So.
It's even better when they correct
mindset shifts.
When they correct your poor behaviors. Then you're doing something right. When they notice you did something wrong or said something wrong, it kind of irritates you. And like, oh shoot! But then you're like, oh no, that was perfect. No, that's great. You're raising some great kids. I can see that. It's going to be fun to watch them. And I'm going to come out there. In fact, I told myself I was going to fly to the Pacific Northwest this year sometime for a week or 10 days and just visit people. But I don't know if it's going to happen now, but I'm going to get out there again soon. But it's fun to watch them on Facebook. It's just, I just know those two boys are going somewhere in life.
From your lips to God's ears.
Exactly. Well, I'll keep knocking on. What was that proverb again? I wrote it down, but I didn't know if I got it right. It was 14:23.
Proverbs 14:23.
Okay.
I even have it tattooed on my body.
You do, really?
Yeah. It's one of those things that's just stuck with me for life. And it's weird, right? Because like if you think about, you never know, what you're going to say to somebody for good or for bad is how it's going to, influence or impact them. It kind of comes back to that. What's the book? Be impeccable with your word. Is one of the
Four Agreements.
4 Agreements. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's true. And it's funny because sometimes somebody will say, one time you told me this, and I'll think, I don't remember saying that. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard that before. But it came out of your mouth sometime, and. It's really good when your kids say that later on in life, and you think they're not listening, and they're listening. Well, that's some great wisdom right there. I just love that hack-proof your life thing, Outlast your bastard. I think that's just a cool. And the titles now for the podcast are all done through artificial intelligence. And I'm kind of curious. They give you a list of optional titles, but I think I'm going to bypass it. And I think I found Outlast Your Bastards. Unless they find a better one, that's going to be I think that'll be today's podcast. That'll catch some attention right away.
I love that. That'll be perfect.
Yeah, I think we're going to go with that one. So, Justin, the next question I have is one that I ask everybody, and I always tell them, hey, you don't have to answer it, but it's a question I think is vitally important for people to share. I was listening to I listened to Joe Rogan. I think Joe Rogan is a master of communication. Just the way he talks with people. He had a gentleman on there today. I can't think of his name. Well, anyway, it was Bruce Bryan, I think, was the guy, and Josh Dutton or something was. Anyway, he's a civil rights attorney. Just Josh is, and Bruce, I think his name was incarcerated for 30 years for a crime he did, or 29 years for a crime he didn't commit. And so what this Josh guy does is he goes in and he fights for these people's rights and gets them released. And it's tragic. These people are in prison for 30 years for, one guy was, this one guy was 75 years for stealing $200 when he was like 18. And the only eyewitness was a guy who was blind in one ear or eye and could barely see out the other. And the other two witnesses says it wasn't this guy. And anyway, this crooked prosecutor has charged all these guys and got him incarcerated. And now thankfully, this prosecuting attorney's in prison now for doing this. Anyway, he had this guy, and he was talking. This guy's the guy that was in prison. This Bruce, tough guy, great guy, highly intelligent, got released, and they were talking about vulnerability. And and Rogan was talking about it with this prosecutor, this civil rights attorney, along with this recently released gentleman. And they had this dialogue. I was just listening to like 10 minutes before you and I started talking. I was kind of finishing up that part of the podcast. And he talked about, and I believe this fully, the stronger the man or woman, the more vulnerable they are. The more vulnerable, the more they can share things, the stronger they become. And Dave Dick made a point one time a few months ago. I posted something on Facebook that was very vulnerable. And he just texted me now and he goes, "Now you are unstoppable."
That's awesome.
And I love that. So this is that kind of question. So I preface it by saying this. So if you could share, what is one of the most difficult things you've ever gone through in your life? And then how did you overcome it?
Yeah, the true to form, I can think of when you kind of ask me that question, I can think of 3 inflection points where things were really bad. There was a need for change. And if I didn't make the decisions that I ultimately did, my life would be wildly different. It would be any different stratosphere, or I wouldn't be alive, to be sincere. The first I can think of is when I was a pudgy teenager, the neighborhood that we grew up in. Again, I'm with my mom, and financing being strapped and all that stuff. We grew up in a low income apartment complex. That at the time as a kid, I was incredibly embarrassed. I wouldn't have anybody over that didn't live in the apartment complex. I didn't want people to know where I lived. I didn't want them to kind of see what that side of my life looked like. but things were bad, and the neighborhood was bad. There was a lot of drugs around, a lot of because of what happened to the logging industry, a lot of meth and heroin had kind of worked their way through the valley, and it was just not a good situation. When I look at that core group of friends I had, one's a paraplegic, two are dead. Another is still in jail. Another is he's a recovered drug addict. He's a success story. It's really cool. But it was it's tough, and then you throw on top of that a bunch of hormones, and you're not making great choices. So I was lazy. I was failing out of school. I'm constantly being suspended due to fights just because I was mad at the world, and I had this sit down where they were going to hold me back. As a seventh grader, it was just not great. Not a great time of my life, but finally we were on this family backpacking trip, and with the up in the middle of the Eagle Cap Wilderness that we do every single summer. And we got to the camp, and I had done some selfish crap, and just not just being a typical kind of teenager probably. But my granddad, after the whole summer of working for him, took this as his opportunity to dress me down in front of the whole family. And it was for hours, and I swear he left no stone unturned. And just in terms of my behavior, the way that was reflecting upon myself, the way that it was reflecting upon the family, and I can still vividly remember today making a decision right then and there that I was going to show everyone there, myself, and anybody that knew me, that I was not who they thought I was. I was going to turn out different than they thought I might. And from there, I somewhat intuitively knew that I had to cut the bad influences out of my life. I had to kind of focus on a core group of key relationships that, of people that were making good decisions, basically, and had to get kind of focused around the things, positive things and positive influences to kind of push my life forward. That's the first that I can think of as a really, key inflection point, kind of growing up. The second was actually the genesis of Fulcrum. So we were working together at that time. I was in the middle of a divorce. I'd moved up to Boise, where basically I knew nobody outside of the connections through the business or the clients I was working with out there. And then I was in the process of separating from my former business partners. And then on top of all that, I found out that my mom's metastatic breast cancer had come back, and returned in full force. And her time, it was really clear that her time was limited. So it was a super dark time, right? Filled with tons of uncertainty. And really, when I think about it, it was a time that I could have folded up shop, and kind of crawled back into either a former role in leadership or something that was more familiar, right? Crawl back to the familiar, safe place. And I could have shrunk in, isolated myself, could have played it safe. I could have stayed a solo practitioner. But what I did instead was, I relied on guidance from a few key people that I trusted, right? So that included you, Neil Taylor, Jeff Marshall, my consultant that I still work with today, my aunt, son and Uncle Marv, who basically kind of become my second parents, and then Kara. And really, they encouraged me to really kind of take a step back and rethink how to approach the business, how to approach my life, and kind of choose the path ahead for myself. And once I decided on that path ahead, I focused on what I can control: my effort, my activity, my attitude to how I reacted to things. And from there, we just started stacking up small wins, right? That was, focused on executing, the best week, and then, focus on, the next strategic hire, the next practice acquisition, the next marketing event. And we started just focusing on stacking up little wins as opposed to trying to make dramatic changes. But again, keeping that circle of influence relatively small, right? A limited number of small key people that I was going deep with, as opposed to trying to please everybody. I mean, the third, and I mean, I think you hit the nail right on the head with COVID, right? In terms of like what, leaving a lot of people changed. And, clearly that's a dark time for everyone. Most everyone, right? It didn't impact everybody equally, but, and well, I think I probably handled things okay publicly. I'm sure some people listening to this might think otherwise, or people that had hurt interactions with me during that time might think otherwise. But I'll definitely admit that I did not handle things nearly as well publicly or privately as I did, publicly. And I think I really let work stress start to creep into my home life as those lines between work and home became more blurred. In all honesty, and transparency, I drank too much during that period of time. I let too many distractions, whether that's technology or social media or the constant 24-hour news, distract me from the things that were most important in my life. And which of course sparked this whole spiral of negativity. And for me, similar to other times, I leaned on a core group of trusted people in my life. And finally, I just shared with those key people that I just transparently I was completely burned out. And that was hard for me because I tend to be, and this, I tend to be a pretty private and guarded person. I'm really careful about who I share what with, or at least was up until that point. And the what I found was kind of showing that vulnerability, though it was tough. I was able to kind of seek out guidance, talking to people about kind of what I was going through and getting professional help. And that was that actually was healing in and of itself, right? In terms of just being vulnerable and sharing kind of that transparent openness. And the biggest thing I learned was giving myself more grace, right? It's okay if I'm not always putting my head through a wall. And the other thing I learned was just to be more open with people. I eventually learned that just being more open and vulnerable with people as a person, a friend, a leader, gave them permission to do the same. And as a byproduct, my relationships became deeper, more meaningful, more rewarding, and it kind of became this self-fulfilling prophecy of that more kind of richer relationships and deeper relationships, and quite honestly, just more real relationships. You kind of pulled me out of that whole kind of spiral, if you will, of kind of a dark deep hole that I had dug for myself ultimately.
I tell you, there's a couple things you just said. That one of them, that you were lazy as a teenager. Now, anybody out there, as you can hear Justin here talking and the stuff he's done with his life, not just professionally, but personally, lazy is not anywhere near the term you would use for Justin. So it's so interesting where we come from and where so many people can break that mold and break that stereotype that we have, or even that, Justin had a path to take. He had two paths. Like he said, one was a real dark path when he was younger as a teenager, and one was his grandpa dressed him down and kind of just told him what the facts and confronted him. And Justin said, all right, I'm changing my life. And I'm going to prove I'm going to prove I'm going to go in the opposite direction and prove people wrong. To say that the word lazy would come out of your mouth, I never would have suspected that. That was powerful. But I want everybody to think for a minute. There was a time frame several years ago where Justin was going through the trifecta, kind of the perfect storm of struggle, going through a divorce, separating from his business partners, and losing his mom to breast cancer. I mean, you don't really get much darker than that. And, if I look at, he had a couple of options: play it safe, stay in the practice, just, kind of don't make any waves. Just, stick in that comfort zone, man. Don't stretch the comfort zone. And instead, he said, no, we're going to go in the direction that I want to go. We're going to start Fulcrum. We're going to go to the next level in life. But he didn't just go out there and try to get these big, huge wins. He started methodically. He did take that next best step, do the next best thing, get those wins under his belt, build the team, meet an amazing woman, Kara, have two beautiful children, and the rest is history. And I think that's a beautiful lesson. And we're all going through some difficult times. We don't have to stay there. But I think so many, Justin, people get afraid. They think, well, I either have to stay here or I have to make some amazing leaps. No, just take the next best step. That's all you have to do. Find out what direction you want to go and take that step. The next day, take another step. And then every day, just, that's what I love the term, the aggregation of marginal gains. And that's really where we start, why I changed the whole name from Torch Consulting to the Bamboo Lab, because it's symbolic of the Chinese bamboo seed. You plant the darn thing, you water it, you nurture it. It takes 3-4 years, nothing happens. And finally, between the 4th and the 5th year, the tree explodes to the earth and it grows 90 feet in the first 6 weeks, because all that time that you were nurturing it and taking that next best step every day, it was growing an elaborate root system, complex root system underground that gave it the power to grow so quickly and to withstand typhoons and hurricanes. And that's exactly what you're talking about here. And I think that's really powerful. And I love two other things Justin said. So I think this is incredibly important. You're going through a difficult time, because whether all of us either are or we're going to. What do they say? I think I heard that we go through an average of 3 crises every year, sprinkled in with a bunch of little emergencies. When you're going through those things, man, open up with people, give yourself some grace, because we all struggle, we all fall, we all make mistakes. I think the alcohol consumption in the country and the world probably went up dramatically during COVID. I know I had my share of Bud Lights during that time, or Coors Light, or whatever I could find at the grocery store. Everybody kind of overconsumed or did something. But give yourself grace when you make mistakes, and reach out to people. Open up, share your vulnerability, be transparent, because when you do that, you nurture some incredibly powerful relationships, and you inspire other people to realize it's okay to be incredibly strong and be vulnerable at the same time. In fact, I believe it's necessary to be vulnerable and transparent to be incredibly strong. So thank you for opening up and sharing that stuff. I learned a little bit more about you just now too, Justin. All right, my friend, I don't even know how old you are, Justin, mid-40s?
I just turned 40 this year.
Turned 40 this year. Yeah. Wow, you are a lot younger. Yeah. So then when I met you, you were probably 22 years old, 23 years old.
Yeah, 22, 23.
Wow.
Yep.
You were just a baby, man. So I was what? You were 23. Let's say I was 40. Well, I was 49. No, I was 39. 39 years old. Gosh. Anyway, so now as you continue to grow, as you do in this exponential, now I see now as you're growing exponentially. Whenever I talk to, and we have a lot of shared friends, a lot of shared, colleagues around the world and around the country. Every time I mention your name, it's, oh my God, they're really kicking butt. They're really rocking it out there. What's a win for you now in life? As you get to this stage, you're 40 years old, you got your family, you got your practice, your team is growing incredibly and getting all this recognition. What's a win for you in life?
Yeah, there's so many ways to go with that, right? Because I think of 3 kind of categories, right? It's the physical challenges, in terms of what we're trying to accomplish there, the family, accomplishments, and really where I want to win there, and then kind of professional. But when I really because when I think about it, Karen and I, we love to do really hard stuff, right? And just to see if we can do it. A couple of weeks ago, we were supposed to do the Grand Canyon rim to rim. That's right, rim to rim to rim. So you run, down through to the other side and then back in the same day. It's roughly 50 miles and a pile of climbing. But 2 days before we're supposed to head down there, we find out the North Rim is completely snowed in, and so that side of the trail is closed. So we just pivot and we say, okay, we'll do the Zion Traverse, which is roughly 40 miles, through Zion National Park. So we're always looking for things that do that, like that, just to push ourselves and see, what we're still capable of. But when I reflect on the times that brought me the most joy, the most sense of purpose, and been the most rewarding, it's always been when I've helped others accomplish something that they might not have if they were left to their own devices. Those really are kind of the most rewarding. And so in my everyday life, that shows up in my work with our team, our work with our clients, and the thousands of lives that we're impacting there. And I love seeing our people develop and change over the course of their career with us. I have countless examples of stories where, when we're doing performance reviews or evaluating hiring somebody or something where, people have told me, well, that person is no good, or that person's too negative. It's best to just move on. Where where we've invested in them personally and professionally to grow them as a person and the professional capacity at the office, and develop a mutual sense of trust and gave them the freedom to turn it around, the freedom and the time to turn it around. And now those kind of bad news bears, employees, if you will, have become some of the best people that I've ever worked with. And those are like the real wins. And so, I kind of, then I see it, with coaching with, youth sports. One of the things I'm incredibly grateful for is the impact that coaches and mentors have had on me. And so, like, one of the other ways, not just in the business, but that I can pay it forward is also, like coaching and developing, kids and, involved with these sports, because it's incredible to see like how you can influence somebody to grow. Right. And you watch, and with kids, it's really cool because you get to see it almost in real time. Or sometimes, like the bamboo you're talking about, you've been doing it for like 2 years, and then all of a sudden it clicks, right? And then they're off to the races. Like we had a baseball game the other day where a kid that 2 years ago was timid, and if you looked him in the eyes, he would have cried. I swear to God, he was like a complete all-star. He's making every play on the field, hitting the ball, all these things. And it was like in the last like month or so, that 2 years worth of, work and coaching and development that we've all done, all of a sudden it explodes and he's off to the races, and it's really cool to see. And so that's where I think we're trying to like win now, is as opposed to putting like, we have very real concrete business goals. But those goals really at the heart of it are how do we help more people, right, get what they want out of life personally and financially. And I think as long as we're doing that, that's a win. And, regardless of, how people want to keep score around it, I know that if we're impacting people, that's a win, for me personally.
And this is all coming from a guy, folks, who lost 32 out of his first 34 wrestling matches, most of them by being pinned. Think about that. And the thing is, whatever I know, and what I hear when you're talking is making an impact. I just want to make an impact. That's my next win, is make an impact on people. There's my family, the clients, my team, the youth, when I'm coaching the youth sports. And I think when I look at Fulcrum, and everything I hear about Fulcrum is high success, high integrity, high client service, or high client satisfaction. And so professionally, you're definitely doing that. And I can tell by your family that you're doing the same thing there with your boys. And obviously, I would assume with youth sports. No, Justin, how far did you go in wrestling? I thought you wrestled in college.
No, I ended up playing football in college just because I think I decided that weight cutting was not something that I wanted to continue doing, which is odd because then. And then like in my professional life and then getting into Ironman, I really quickly figured out that lighter people move quick. So then I resorted to the same tactics of, weight loss that I did back then. But the wrestling, really, I think Kara has a mentor that, a close, family friend. He's a high school wrestling coach up here in Southwest Washington. And he said, the thing that he says is there's two types of boys in this world: those that do wrestle and those that should. And I think that it teaches you a lot about yourself, as a person, because there's no excuses, right? If you get beat, it was you. You can't blame a teammate, right? You can't blame the ref because it's pretty self-evident, what occurred out there. So, there's no place to hide and there's a place to shine. So
I think that's perfect. And I was so, when you talk about that, I think about, Dawson going into karate and at a young age and getting his black belt. Now he's huge into boxing and just martial MMA. The one aspect he hasn't gotten down yet is wrestling. And I think that's probably going to be something he's going to want to start learning, or jiu-jitsu or something, or judo or something, to kind of add to more of that, ground level combat. But it is. You're out there in the ring, or you're in the dojo, or you're in the mat, man. It's you and one other person, and it's you either come across, you're either win or lose, and you can't blame the offensive line, you can't blame the quarterback or your defense, you can't blame the coaches. It's just you or that other person. So that's a great way to learn. Okay, this question I think is my favorite question. So if I have a time machine, I'm going to fly out to see you today, Justin, and we're going to sit down, we're going to jump in, and we're going to go back to that very first day you started at American Express. Or you can pick another day if you want, but around that age time frame. And you were able to sit on a park bench and talk to your former self, your younger version of Justin. And I was just going to sit back and observe. What would you say to your younger self? What kind of advice, words of wisdom, recipe for success would you give yourself?
And the one of some of the best advice I ever got, and it sticks with me even today. It was given by a good friend, former boss, mutual friend of ours, Byron Gaga. At the time, I was a first year district manager at the ripe age of 23 or 24, in charge of training and developing others, that were twice my age. And to put it mildly, and I think I remember you even referred to me as this at the time when we were at lunch, was I was a bit of a bull in a china closet, and I was hardworking, hard charging, but I was also really tough on people. And in my mind, if I could do X, given my background and resources and everything, then everybody should be able to do X, right? And I didn't fully appreciate that people had different, life experience. People had different values. They had different priorities, different perspectives from my own. And I didn't really understand or perhaps respect that to the extent that I should have. And at the time, our leadership team was kind of a group of alphas, right? It was Dave, Byron, a guy named Eric, and myself. And we butted heads a lot. And Byron gave us the freedom to hack it out in our weekly leadership team meetings. And finally, after one particularly brutal session, Byron pulled me aside and he said, Justin, with Dave, and I can say this because Dave's a good friend, but with Dave and I were butting heads, at the time, like nobody's business, and kind of an iron sharpens iron situation. But he said, Justin, with Dave, I just need you to take what you like and don't take what you don't like. And yeah, and it hit me like a ton of bricks, for some reason. And what I took from that was that everyone has something to teach me, regardless of their circumstances, their station in life, regardless of the personality, regardless of their leadership style. It's up to me to figure out what I can learn from them. And that completely changed the way I interacted with people. It completely changed the way I view the world. And it goes back to that. You never know what you say and how that's going to impact somebody. But I think of that, and that's something I wish I would have learned a lot earlier, because I think it would have, if I really learned it at my core, like I understand it now, it would have changed a lot of things in terms of, how quickly I learned, how quickly I grew, how quickly I progressed, and what my relationships look like. So that would be the key piece of advice that I would pound into my thick, however old skull. So,
it's so funny about that, Justin. And I remember when I first met Byron in Portland, Oregon, back in 1998, 99, maybe 90. I don't remember. 99 probably. I know I was there during the 2000 deal when everything changed over. But I think it was early, and Frank Moss had said, "Hey, we got this guy who's not in your program. He's an advisor, but he's going into management, and can you just kind of mentor him a little bit?" I remember walking into his office, and I had some interaction with Byron, and because I was in the office for 6 months, I lived right across the street at the Phoenix Inn, I think, or some hotel, and I remember saying to him, "Dude, you're a bull in a china store." And I said, "Go out and buy the book, Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun. Meet me in my hotel room tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. in the lobby." And that's when we started working together, as we just went through the book. And he was the same way, man. Bull in the China store. And I know I'd had people told me that when I was younger too, or, not, younger in my career. And that's a great lesson for all of us. And I love the way it was played, the way you stated it. Take what you like and don't take what you don't like. because there is some value. I think so often, I think today, especially in our country, I know I don't like to do the cliche, we're so divisive right now, but we are. And it's, I think we tend to, shut people off because of a different religious, political, philosophical view or the way they act. We just tend to push them completely out of our lives versus saying, wait a minute, there's still a lot of value in that person. That person's still a really good human being. I just don't like this one aspect, or I disagree with that aspect, but there's a lot I can learn from that person. So take what you like, respect what you like, but don't take what you don't like. It's that simple. That could cure a lot of problems right now in our world. Just that quick little statement.
Yeah, I think that you'd find. I think we'd find a lot more middle ground, right? Because like the second I took that perspective, as opposed to the one like where I'm right and I got to convince everybody I'm right. My relationship with Dave and with others in the office changed overnight. It was a wildly different, interaction. And as a byproduct, if I look at like how our business, like in Vancouver, exploded. Now it wasn't only because I decided to not be a negative Nancy, but, or a bull in a china closet, but, there's a whole host of other reasons the business exploded. But I would venture to guess that in no small part, it was, a more cohesive leadership team presenting a more unified front, and being on the same page, definitely helped influence that.
Well, iron sharpens iron. If I look at the people who are in that office, I mean, there's some powerful people who came out of that team, that leadership team right now. So making a big difference. All right, what's next for you, Justin? Jason, I don't know where that came from.
It's funny. Nobody ever called me Jason until I started at Ameriprise, and one of my good buddies, Jason Helvig, who started like a week behind me.
Yeah, I know Jason.
Still a cube mate, and he's been wildly successful at Ameriprise as well. But ever since then, everybody's called. I would say like half the time I get called Jason, so it's no big deal.
I've never called you that before.
Yeah, but I think, what's next? Personally, like over the summer months, I'm going to be investing as much time with the family as possible. Camping, fly fishing, going to camps and jiu-jitsu tournaments and whatnot. But in business-wise, it's interesting. So we spent, I'd say, like the last 5 years really focused on consolidating our business. We've grown rapidly. And really for the last 5 years, we've consolidated and focused on like what I'd consider like operational excellence, really getting our client experience right, really making sure that we're delivering at a high level. And now with that kind of platform, if you will, this year we've really, pivoted or, entered another really exciting growth phase. We've, brought on a couple awesome strategic hires so far this year that are absolutely hitting home runs. I'm convinced both of them are really going to, really kind of reshape the way that we do things here. And we also promoted another advisor, a Linfield Wildcat, from within the team. So we didn't have to hire somebody from another firm and do that whole process. We grew somebody organically, which I'm really excited about because in some ways I think it shows kind of proof and concept in terms of my original vision for Fulcrum. And so we're really excited about that and what that means for our clients and what it means for capacity for our advisors on the team. And then another, big thing was my uncle and longtime mentor who suckered me into this business, 18 years ago. He just, him and his wife Cinda just merged practices with ours, which ultimately will make everybody better as a byproduct. He's probably one of the most well-read advisors that I've ever come in contact with, and somebody that I have immense personal and professional respect for. And so, really excited about what that means for them and for our clients and for the rest of our team. Then our COO, who's a longtime friend, longtime client, who started as a COO just about a year and a half ago. She's helping us refine our systems and processes that kind of raise the bar further to further enhance our client experience and to better serve our clients. And so we have a lot of exciting things, to hopefully kind of tee things up and reach that next level. So those are that's like what's next.
You know what I like about what the whole time we've been talking for the past hour, you've talked a lot about building your team. You've talked about team members being promoted organically, bringing on new people, and improving the client experience and service. You never once mentioned about how much money to make. And I think that's so indicative of what successful people really focus on. They don't focus on the money. The money is important and it has to be there. But it's how we do that is by impacting other people with integrity. And as you talked about before, I think that's so honorable. You don't see that a lot in the financial world. People may not talk about money when they come on the podcast or how much money they want to make necessarily, but they also oftentimes don't talk about the things you brought up, the team and growing the team and improving the team and watching them grow and how much it inspires you to watch them grow, and then talking about the client experience and client service. So kudos to you and all of Fulker, man, because you guys are doing it the right way. Hey, one of the things you got to put on your list of next, but maybe not next, but maybe a couple of years down the road is you and I and Rethke getting out and doing some fly fishing.
Let's do it. I'm sold.
He and I were talking 2 weeks ago on Thursday. He's like, yeah, when Samples and I went out fly fishing, that was a few years ago. And I remember that trip because you had asked me if I wanted to come, and he had asked me, and I was like, God, I'd love to go out there, but it just didn't work out. And you guys went out, you were catching 20-some fish, he said, the first day or something. I mean, I don't know. It was something crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It was like we hit the sweet spot. Like I hit a honey hole, and we just were having the best time. So
it was amazing. That was like the most magical day of fly fishing I've ever had. Period.
That's what he said. He goes, it was just crazy. So I told him, well, next time you guys plan something, you make sure you include me early in the stages so I can book a flight and get out there and go with you guys and spend a few days. So, all right, Justin, as we get ready to wrap up here, I've got one final question. I kind of like this to be kind of a net that catches anything I might have missed. So is there any question that I didn't ask that you wish I would have, or is there any final message you want to leave with the Bamboo Pack?
Well, you didn't ask me about my outlook for Oregon football this year. But,
I was going to ask you when we were first. Hey, they look good.
We'll see. I hold out great hope. It's the optimism springs eternal, right, in the off season. But yeah. Well,
don't you have a quarterback or running? You got a pretty darn good quarterback.
Yeah, Bo Nix is pretty good.
Yeah, because they listed like the top 25 returning quarterbacks, and I think he was in the top 10 for sure. He was higher than Michigan's quarterback. I know that. I'm pretty sure he was. And Washington has a good quarterback coming back as well.
Yeah, we won't talk about that.
Scott will, though.
I took Jackson to his first Oregon game, and it happened to be the UW game. It was an amazing game until it wasn't, right? Like right at the end when Bo got hurt and all the stuff went south. But it was an awesome game, awesome experience, and cool to take Jackson down to it. Really cool. So hopefully this year we're able to turn the tide the other direction. So,
well, I got to tell you, Dawson has a little mini helmet of the Oregon Duck. I remember I said that. Remember when you're Heisman? Oh, yeah. I bought it from the year that your quarterback won the Heisman. And he loved him, so I bought him that little mini helmet. He still has it. But last 2 years ago, Rethke sent me a Washington Huskies baseball cap.
Oh, there you go.
So I got so I can represent both teams. But other than the day when they're playing, I have to just be neutral.
Exactly. The only thing I'd leave you with is like what we talked about, Outlast the bastards, right? There's going to be a lot of flashy people, a lot of Johnny-come-latelys, but if you focus on the right stuff, work your tail off, and you do so with diligence and integrity, you're going to accomplish a lot more than you imagine. So,
well, I think if anybody out there listening doesn't want to stop their car or whatever they're doing and run through a brick wall, you didn't quite get the whole gist of this podcast. So I'm going to recommend for anybody who's listening to this while you're driving, running, hiking, lifting, cleaning your house, walking around your office, whatever it is, sit down somewhere, replay this podcast, and listen to it again with a pad of paper. I mean, my notepad is already full, so I'm writing really micro small right now so I can get everything on my piece of paper. And please share this with 3 other people. This was solid stuff. I knew this was going to be a podcast with content that was inspirational, motivational, but also very informative of not just what to do, but how to do it and why to do it. So, my brother, man, I want to talk to you for a few minutes when we're done here, so if you could just hang on after we're wrapping up. But I just want to thank you, Justin. This was amazing. Give my best to Kara, Jackson, and Elliot, and please give my best to your team. And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being such an amazing guest on the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity, Brian.
Oh, my pleasure. We'll do it again. We got a lot more in that brain of yours we got to get out, so we'll do a part 2 sometime soon. All right, everybody. In the meantime, everybody, I look forward to talking to you next week and hearing from you. Please send out any letters, any feedback you get for us, good or bad. We'd love to hear it. Please hit that, smash that like button, share us with other people, 3 other people. We always ask. This podcast is growing. I think as of this morning, we have subscribers on all 6 continents, 56 countries, and 1,571 cities around the world. Next stop is 1,600 cities, and we just keep growing from there. So please share us, rate us, review us, and subscribe. In the meantime, everyone, get out there and sculpt your life, man. Strive, love, and live, man. That's the basics of life. Strive to give and be your best. Show love and respect to others and yourself, and live intentionally. Enjoy each moment. All right, everyone, I appreciate each and every one of you. Until next time.